Hello, welcome to News Round, where you get a recap of top stories amid headlines during the week. Coming up, the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board admits errors in this year's Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination, with scheduled exams for over 300,000 students. On a bold legislative move stares the polity as the House of Representatives passes the second reading of a bill seeking to amend the Electoral Act to make voting compulsory for all eligible Nigerians if passed into law. And a violent storm and heavy downpours left many families displaced and communities reeling in Katsina State as 300 houses were destroyed. Plus, U.S. President Donald Trump concludes groundbreaking Middle East tour, redefining global alliances with key stops in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE. Our news round begins with widespread complaints of technical glitches, unusually low scores, and alleged irregularities associated with the results of this year's Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination. In a surprising twist, the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board had admitted to the errors that affected the performance of students. The registrar of the board, Professor Ishaq Oloyede, made the admission mid-tears during a media briefing in Abuja.
Devoid of the usual calmness as journalists converge on the headquarters of the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board for the outcome of the review meeting of the board. According to the examination body, a total of 1,955,069 results were processed, out of which only 4,756 candidates scored 320 and above, considering top-tier performance, while 7,658 candidates scored between 300 and 319, bringing the total for those who scored 300 and above to 12,414 candidates.
First working day after the release of the result.
The registrar of Jamb leads the news by taking responsibility for what he describes as sabotage of the 2025 UTME that affected several candidates.
Today marks a moment we shall not soon forget, a day that should have been filled with celebration for what was, until recently, regarded as our most successful UTM exercise. Regrettably, this joy has been overshadowed by an easily avoidable error by one or two persons. Our review and investigation revealed that there are grounds for the complaints about our 2025 UTME result. So I appeal to the candidates and those affected by the error of our system to accept the explanation I've given as the truth on this matter. I apologize and take full responsibility, not just in words.
As the implication of the errors dawn on the Jamb registrar, he breaks down in tears.
I know that some members of the group want to say one or two.
He provides details of the candidates affected during the exercise.
5 states of the Southeast were affected, but in terms of number, over 200, all of them coming from Lagos State, were affected, but 173,387 from the Southeast states. In clear terms, in the process of rectifying the issue, the technical personnel deployed by our service provider for LAG, Lagos and Southeast zones, inadvertently failed to update some of the delivery servers. Regrettably, this oversight went undetected prior to the release of the results. We unanimously agreed that each state of the Federation be sampled. No sign of any abnormality so far has been detected in any center outside the ones mentioned.
Thank you.
Determined to remedy the situation, the board announces the rescheduling of the examination for affected candidates.
We have decided that all the candidates affected in the 157 centers of the 882 be contacted to retake their examinations. These candidates are to be contacted through text messages addressed to their registered phone number from tomorrow.
Out of the 1.9 million candidates who sat for the UTME, over 1.5 million scored below 200, out of the maximum 400 marks, raising concerns across the education sector. However, the review of the exercise may have provided succor for some of the affected candidates.
And over to the National Assembly, where a bill for an act to amend the Electoral Act to make it mandatory for Nigerians of age to vote in all national and state elections has scaled second reading in the House of Representatives. Leading the debate, Honorable Daniel Sama says the essence of democracy is participation, expressing the belief that mandatory voting can reduce the influence of vote buying. Meanwhile, a bill for an act to amend the Labor Act to increase the maternity leave period for working women to 6 months has been stepped down in the House after lawmakers, including women, debated against it.
A quite eventful plenary session in the House of Representatives begins with defections. The national chairman of the All Progressives Congress leads members of the party, including the Minister of State for the Federal Capital Territory, to witness the defection of 3 members of the House to the party.
Congratulations, my brother. Congrats.
Honorable Oluwole Oke from Osun State defects from the PDP, while Honorable Kabiru Rurum and Honorable Abdullahi Rogo, both from Kano State, defect from the New Nigeria People's Party.
With your leave, Mr. Speaker.
Getting down to the business of the day, an urgent motion on the admittance to errors in the 2025 UTME by the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board is taken as the House calls for calm.
I rise this morning to move a motion on the urgent need to address the anger, confusion, and agony that trail the 2025 Jamb examination UTME in Nigeria. Urge the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, Jamb, to establish at least one CBT center in each of the 774 local government areas across the Federation.
The House moves to consider bills scheduled for second reading, one of which seeks to make it compulsory for every Nigerian of legal age to vote in elections.
By making voting a legal obligation, we will instill in the citizens a sense of civic duty and shared responsibility in the governance process.
If we begin to put these structures in place, like as a legislature, Mr. Speaker, I can assure you there will be greater participation of Nigerians in our democratic process, so that they will be part of the decision making, so that they will own the process, so that they will own the decision, so that they will not say it is either this party or that party's decision.
Some lawmakers argue that the citizens have lost confidence in the voting system and also question the authenticity of the voters' register.
Can we, in all honesty, tell ourselves that our voter register is clean? In some constituencies, you find Mike Tyson, who is not a citizen of that place, still on the register till today. When we talk about 30% of voters, 30% of what?
The bill scales second reading, but the next one to increase the maternity leave period for women to 6 months does not.
Many states in Nigeria and many countries have already adopted this 6 months maternity leave period for women. It will just be therefore ideal and proper for us to reflect that in the laws of federation. So in view of the numerous benefits as enumerated, for those of us who are fathers and who are also looking to become grandparents, I think this amendment is in the interest of our children and grandchildren, even those not yet born.
Already we are not on the good book of you men. I'm sorry to say, but this is what is obtainable. Now, if this bill goes on, people in private sector may say, once you employ a woman, when she's pregnant, she leaves the office for 6 months, and there will be nobody there.
I seek the leave of the House to step down this bill, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Meanwhile, the House has continued to amend the Regional Development Commission Acts to expand their directorates. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the bill that seeks for an act to provide for the principle of rotational presidency among the 6 geopolitical zones has been stepped down, and those waiting for that might have to wait a little longer. In fact, 7 constitutional amendment bills have failed to scale second reading in the House of Representatives. The bills were lumped together and put to vote as lawmakers voted against them.
The Deputy Speaker presides over the first plenary session of the week in the Green Chamber. The House delves into the order of the day with 7 constitutional amendment bills listed for second reading. All the bills are thrown open to a debate. However, the one which seeks to provide for the principle of rotation of the offices of the President and Vice President among the 6 geopolitical zones of the country sparks a debate. Those in support of the bill believe it will address the issue of marginalization.
In Nigeria today, states, zones like Northeast have been marginalized, and they need to be given fair treatment. And zones like my brother Honorable Falake zones have been, so far they have spent 12 years as president, and we believe that's enough for Southwest.
If this is entrenched in the Constitution, it will bring justice and fairness, because let's not deceive ourselves. There are some zones, if it is left open, a certain particular zone in this country will continue to dominate.
For all the lawmakers, the demerits outweigh the merits.
If that geopolitical zone has its own shot, the next one will wait for about 48 years. Regardless of the quality of people we'll have in that zone, this country will lose that opportunity of bringing people that will render public service for this country just because of regional affiliation.
If we come to the Southwest, I'm from Oyo State, who takes it? Is it Ogun? Is it Ondo? Is it Ekiti?
Mr. Speaker, I implore that we do not set a dangerous precedent and put it in the Constitution without due diligence, which I'm sure the Constitutional Review Committee will do so. But while it tackles injustice, I must agree with the previous speaker. This could really set us back. And finally, unfortunately, we are but human beings. What happens in the event of death?
All 7 bills are put to vote at once, leading to their death.
For it to progress, say aye. Those against say nay. The nays have it.
Efforts are then made to save some of the bills.
My request, my appeal, is that I move that we rescind that decision and the question be put per bill. If we reject one bill and reject another, we might find one that we want to accept.
Let us rescind by tomorrow and take care of all these one after the other.
Now, following the directive of the Deputy Speaker who presided over plenary, the 7 bills would likely be reconsidered on the following legislative day if the chairman of the House Committee on Business and Rules lists them as motion on notice for rescission to allow members vote on these bills separately. And this is because members had specific interest on specific bills as debated on the floor during plenary. From the National Assembly, Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Well, tributes poured in from across Nigeria's political landscape as dignitaries gathered in Katsina, Delta State for the funeral of elder statesman and nationalist Chief Edwin Clark. President Bola Tinubu, represented by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, former President Goodluck Jonathan, President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, Delta State Governor Sheriff Oborowere, and several state governors joined others to honor the late icon.
It was a solemn but dignified event in Katsina as the nation bids its final farewell to Pa Edwin Clark, a revered voice of the Niger Delta and a towering figure in Nigeria's political history.
All right.
Among those present are governors from Delta, Bayelsa, Akwa Ibom and Bauchi states, alongside former governors and federal ministers, all gathered to honor a man they call a bridge builder and a symbol of integrity. In a moving sermon, Anglican Archbishop of the Bendel Province, Cyril Odutemu, describes the late Edwin Clark as a man of rare integrity, known for using his legal knowledge to defend the voiceless.
Edwin Clark shows a good name. A man who uses legal wisdom pro bono for the well-being of all Nigerians. The poor, the indigent, how Nigeria can remain one for good.
It's time for tributes and eulogies, beginning with the host's governor, Sheriff Uborewore, who describes the late elder statesman as a man of honor.
There was just something about him that did not allow him to keep silent in the face of abuse of power, corruption, and injustice. He was a voice of reason and wisdom in the national political space.
Senate President Godswill Akpabio and former President Dr. Goodluck Jonathan also paid glowing tributes to the late Niger Delta leader.
He was not just a father, leader, and patriot. He was an extraordinary human being, a pillar of our nation, an audacious voice for the voiceless, and an unflinching defender of justice, minority rights, and national unity.
So as we are seated here now, I want to see up to 100 by Edwin Clark emerged from the Niger Delta region, because we're all his students. We're all his students. He did well for us, he did well for Nigeria. As we bid him farewell today, we remember that we are not just laying a man to rest in the grounds of the Niger Delta, but a monument.
President Bola Tinubu, represented by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, describes Chief Edwin Clark as a courageous and principled advocate for justice, unity, and resource control.
He spoke for the Niger Delta. He spoke for the nation. His views and interventions on national issues were distinct and patriotic. He was a champion of his community and the country. But Clark believed in a united Nigeria, and until his last breath, he never stopped reaching out to people from different parts of the country to work together to preserve national unity based on justice and equity.
The service concludes with dignitaries leaving the arena while his family lay his body at his resting place. From the creeks of the Niger Delta to the corridors of national influence, Chief Edwin Clark's life was one of purpose and conviction. His passing marks the end of an era, but his voice, values, and vision will echo for many years to come.
And to other major stories this week, some worrying news from Katsina State, where at least 300 houses were destroyed and property worth millions of naira lost following a heavy windstorm and downpour in the affected communities. The incident, which lasted for about 15 minutes on Wednesday evening, rendered many residents of the community homeless.
This is the first rain in Katsina State for the year, and it comes with destruction in its wake. Several houses were destroyed and properties worth millions of naira were lost following the windstorm that came with the rainfall. Those affected by the disaster appeal to the government to assist them in the view of the economic situation in the country.
During the incident, I was just sitting inside the room, and I eventually noticed that the only room I have was completely down, resulting to dislocation of my leg and hand bone crack. Thank God all my children were at Islamia school then. We seek divine and government interventions because I struggled hard and used all my property to raise this destroyed single room.
We are calling on our good government to look into our critical condition, to assist us. Although we have received this destiny in good faith, as I am speaking, we do not have where our families will be heading to.
The ward head of one of the affected communities wants the State Emergency Management Agency to assess the situation and assist the victims.
It was a heavy windstorm accompanied by rain, which within 15 minutes, several houses were completely destroyed. We are calling on the government and well-to-do individuals to please come to our aid in this community. Otherwise, many house occupants will become homeless. We are indeed in dire need of support, please. We want the state governor, Malam Diko Umar Rada, if he comes across this request, to please send a delegation to assess the level of damage here in our community.
Some of the affected areas include Sabuwa, Unguwa, Modoji Gabas, Shinkafi, and Kuka Gesa areas, as well as Ambassador Quarters and some parts of Jibia local government area, amongst others.
And we end news round in the Middle East, where U.S. President Donald Trump wrapped up his visit with stops in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, United Arab Emirates that saw him reimagine alliances on the world stage. The tour brought lucrative deals for the U.S. and the three countries, including an investment worth $1.4 trillion from the UAE into the U.S.'s AI sector over the next decade, and an agreement for Qatar to buy $42 billion worth of U.S. military hardware. The UAE and the U.S. also plan to spend $440 billion in the energy sector through 2035, also hinting at the new global tariff terms, and appeared to confirm Iran has received a nuclear deal proposal. At the end of this visit, the U.S. president sent a message of unity to the UAE citizens, saying, "Great unity, great faith, incredible people with a tremendous leader."
The U.S. president arrived in Riyadh, the Saudi Arabian capital, to a royal welcome of purple instead of a red carpet. Both sides signed landmark deals on defense, energy, artificial intelligence, and economy. The agreements will see the Kingdom of Saudi commit to investing $600 billion in the U.S., as well as a $142 billion deal to provide Riyadh with state-of-the-art warfighting equipment. The U.S. president met with Syria's President Ahmed al-Shara the day before he had announced the lifting of sanctions on Syria. Al-Shara expressed gratitude for regional and international support, affirming that Syria is moving confidently towards a more inclusive and cohesive future.
I am also ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria to give them a fresh start. It gives them a chance for greatness. The sanctions were really crippling, very powerful.
This announcement was celebrated on the streets of Damascus. And one praised by the Saudi government.
We are incredibly grateful to President Trump for taking the courageous decision to lift sanctions on Syria. I know this is not an easy decision, but we believe very, very strongly that it's a necessary decision, that it's a necessary step in supporting not just the stability of Syria and regional stability.
On the second leg of his visit, which was to Qatar, the U.S. president paid tribute to his host, the Emir of Qatar, and the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, as he signed defense agreements in Doha. The Qatari government committed to the largest order of jets in the history of Boeing. The U.S. president said the oil and gas-rich monarchy, which has offered to provide the U.S. president with a luxury palace on wings, committed to spending $100 billion on the planes as part of a broader $243.5 billion economic pledge.
It's actually 200, including the 40, so it's over $200 billion. But 160 in terms of the jets, that's fantastic. So that's a record, Kelly. And congratulations to Boeing. Get those planes out there. Get them out there.
President Trump's visit ended in the United Arab Emirates on Thursday evening following a flight on Air Force One, accompanied by UAE Air Force F-16 and Mirage fighter jets. The U.S. president landed in Abu Dhabi in the UAE, where he met President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. As part of his visit, he was given a tour of the Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque, accompanied by Sheikh bin Zayed.
And those were the top stories for this week. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ladi Williams. Bye for now.